Welcome to Life Words Day by Day. We've been getting our hearts and minds in the season of Thanksgiving by studying Psalm 104. And we've seen that one of the reasons we should bless the Lord is because of His majesty displayed in all He is and all He does. But now the psalm writer directs our hearts and our minds and eyes to consider the stability and sovereignty of God in establishing boundaries for the formation of the earth. Listen to what the Word of God says in Psalm 104, verses 5 through 8. He set the earth on its foundations so that it should never be moved. You covered it with deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At your rebuke they fled. At the sound of your thunder they took flight. The mountains rose, the valleys sank down to the place that you appointed for them. You set a boundary that they may not pass. I want you to consider with me the stability that God produces and that it's unshakable. You see it in verse 5. The earth can never be moved 1 inch by anyone or any power that is not Yahweh God. And notice how the psalmist describes how God put the water on the earth. He covered the earth with water much like a mother might snap a blanket on her child's bed. In other words, it was no problem for God to do such a thing. It was easy for Him. Have you ever tried to hold water? Isaiah says that God measures the waters in His hand. Now, if it was easy for God to cover the earth with deep and churning waters, and if it was easy for Him to set the earth on its foundations so that it would never be moved, thus showcasing His strength and stability, is it any problem for Him to steady your life? In Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27, Jesus gives the illustration of a house built on rock versus a house built on sand. The rains came down, the floods came up, and the winds beat against the house. So do you see the picture? The pressures of life that come at you from every possible angle, from above, from below, from outside, and from within. How do you survive in life when that's going on around you? How do you maintain stability and sanity? Well, you have to build your life upon the rock. What is that rock? Jesus says, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house upon the rock. But notice what else the psalmist says about God's stability and sovereignty. At His command, chaos turns to order. In the Jewish world, the sea oftentimes represented chaos. On the sea, there were wild winds and crashing waves. Here in our text, the water was so high that it covered the mountains. But when God said, go, the water did exactly what God wanted the water and the mountains to do. The mountains rose up, the valleys sank down to the exact place that our God had appointed for it. There's no mountain peak that reaches 1 inch higher than God desires, and there's no valley that dips beneath the limit God set for it. And there's no ocean that travels 1 grain of sand too far on the shore than what God has ordained for it to flow. We see this power on display in a similar situation in the Gospel of Mark. In Mark chapter 4, Jesus and some of His disciples were on the water. A storm blew up and the sea became chaotic. And Mark writes, and Jesus awoke and rebuked the wind and said, peace, be still. And the wind ceased and there was great calm. Could it be that the God who rebuked the waters in Psalm 104 is the same God who rebuked the wind and the waves in Mark chapter 4? Absolutely. Listen, if the God of the universe can set the earth on an unshakable foundation and can bring peace out of chaos, then why wouldn't you go to Him? Press into Him, rely upon Him, bow down and worship Him. Today when you pray, please pray for Ashraf Sarah and his family, our missionaries in Texas. And also remember the Alongo Life Word broadcast in the Philippines.